It's time again for Northwestern Outdoors Radio, the show covering fishing, hunting, and all sorts of outdoor recreation and destinations right here in the region you live and play in. Northwestern Outdoors is brought to you every week by Max Lure Company, makers of the world-famous wedding ring spinner, by Loophole, America's Optics Authority, and by Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter. Northwestern Outdoors is also sponsored by Wallowa County in Northeast Oregon, where you'll find both nature and fun. By Chad's Coast White Sports Fishing, offering you the affordable Canadian fishing trip of a lifetime. And by Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors. So grab your fishing rod or hunting gear, load up the boat or lace up your boots, and let's head outdoors with your host, John Cruz.
Guess what? We won! It's true. We finished first in the audio category this year for a segment we submitted for the Excellence in Craft Award contest for the Northwest Outdoors Writers Association. Our award-winning interview was one we had with one of my favorite fishing guides, Steve Fleming. Steve is the longtime owner of Maha Outfitters out of Fossil, Oregon, and he joined me for a discussion about the great fishing to be found on the John Day River. We're always humbled when we receive accolades like this, but I've got to admit, it's nice to get feedback, letting us know we really are producing some good radio for you. Okay, enough of this self-congratulatory stuff. Let's talk about what we are bringing you. Yes, you, the important part of this show. We're going to start things off with a bicycling adventure along the John Wayne Pioneer Trail in Washington State. Part of this trail lies within Iron Horse State Park, stretching from the western foothills of the Cascades east to the Columbia River near Vantage. Along the way, there are trestles, tunnels, state parks to camp at, and more. You can do portions of it as a day trip, or you can do the whole thing as a multi-day trip. You can do it as a solo cyclist with friends or with the kids. Heather Fry with Washington State Parks, who wrote a great blog about this, will join us to tell you more. Lance Mers is back for another extended Max Minute, and he's got some suggestions about some new kokanee lakes to fish, as well as a new lure to try when you get there. Speaking of fishing, we'll get the latest Southwest Montana fishing report from Chris Bradley at the Stonefly Fly Shop in Butte, and we'll share news from our state fisheries managers about late-breaking opportunities in the Columbia River for sturgeon and Idaho's Clearwater, salmon, and Little Salmon rivers for Chinook salmon. If you are going to be camping or just want to improve your wild game or seafood cooking, then you'll want to hear our conversation with Tim Murphy. He hails from Astoria. He actually works for our affiliate KVAS there and is the author of over 50 cookbooks, all part of the Flannel John Cookbook series. We'll be talking about cooking food in the fire and foil, great ways to prepare grilled oysters and razor clams, and some tips for you guys who are on your own and don't have anyone to cook for you. On top of that, we've got our Sportsman's Warehouse Trivia Question of the Week, where you get the chance to win a $25 gift card from America's premier outfitter, which, by the way, is celebrating the opening of a brand new store in Everett, Washington this weekend. But first, it's time for another edition of Sportsman Spotlight with David Sparks. Sportsman Spotlight is brought to you every week by Chad's Coast-Wide Sports Fishing, offering affordable, all-inclusive saltwater fishing vacations out of Port Hardy, BC. I'm heading there in a month myself with my family, and I can't wait. Find out more at coastwidesportsfishing.com.
Ducks Unlimited had their annual gala that started last week and ended up over the weekend. David Sparks, Sportsman Spotlight. Senior Water Policy Advisor for Ducks Unlimited, Whitney Tawney.
Ducks Unlimited is all about waterfowl. So we were founded over 80 years ago to work on wetlands conservation for waterfowl for the perpetuation of hunting from generation to generation.
And that message about conservation rang out at the convention. House Agriculture Committee Chairman Mike Conaway helped kick off Ducks Unlimited's 2017 National Convention by welcoming the crowd to his home state of Texas. In his remarks, Chairman Conaway stressed the importance of passing a new farm bill to provide a strong safety net and conservation title for our nation's farmers and ranchers. The Farm Bill represents the single largest federal investment in private lands conservation, totaling more than $25 billion over 5 years. Ducks Unlimited has a long history of working with Congress, ranchers, farmers, and other private landowners across the country to promote Farm Bill programs that enhance and restore millions of acres of critical habitat for waterfowl and other wildlife.
A quality and affordable fishing adventure is waiting for you off Vancouver Island with Chad's Coast-Wide Sports Fishing. Located in Port Hardy, British Columbia, you can drive or fly to your all-inclusive guided fishing vacation. Whether you're after big salmon, heart-fighting halibut, or a cooler full of red snapper and lingcod, you can catch it all here. Better yet, your lodging, meals, and fish processing are all taken care of. Want one more reason to go? The price. With the Canadian dollar exchange rate where it is right now, your U.S. dollar goes further. Space is limited, so go to coastwidesportsfishing.com to book your trip. That's coastwidesportsfishing.com for an incredible BC fishing adventure.
Sportsman's Warehouse is America's premier outfitter and has the quality gear you need for hunting, fishing, camping, and more. Our knowledgeable and friendly staff will help you find the right product so you get the most out of your time in the field or on the water. In addition to stocking superior clothing and outdoor equipment, we offer in-store events and seminars so you can enjoy a successful adventure. With over 70 stores located in the United States, it's easy to find a Sportsman's Warehouse store near you. Find out more at sportsmanswarehouse.com.
You're back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. Summer is upon us. The kids are getting out of school. It's time to think about some summer adventures. And one that you might want to do with your family or with a loved one or maybe by yourself is to bicycle on one of the great rail trails we have here in the Northwest. One of the best you're going to find is at Iron Horse State Park. It actually encompasses the John Wayne Pioneer Trail, and it goes all the way from the Cascades to the Columbia River in Washington State. With us here to tell us more about it is Heather Fry with Washington State Parks. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. It's great to be here.
So, Heather, give us a brief overview of Iron Horse State Park in terms of the trail itself, where it starts, where it ends, and what you're going to see along the way.
Well, Iron Horse starts up high in the Cascades. It begins at what's known as Cedar Falls, at a trailhead up there. It runs about 100 miles toward the east along an old railroad bed. It really covers incredible country. You start up high in the mountains, and you'll pass through some amazing railroad tunnels. You'll go and drop down through several Washington State parks, including Olali, Lake Easton, Olmsted State Park, and eventually out to Ginkgo Wanapum Recreation Area. And it just covers such an amazing diversity of landscapes and areas across the state. It makes such a wonderful ride. The great thing about it is you can drop in anywhere on it, and you're sure to have an incredible bicycling experience, no matter where you begin or end.
Well, Heather, you wrote a great blog entry about this for Washington State Parks, and folks, I'd encourage you, go to the parks website and read that because it's chock full of information, but we'll run through some of it here right now. One question before we go further. It's called Iron Horse State Park for obvious reasons because it's the old rail line. Why is it called the John Wayne Pioneer Trail? I mean, John Wayne was a pioneer in the movies, but he never was in real life. How'd this trail get that name?
That's actually a great story, and it's a really wonderful tale of how people can come together and create a piece of recreational land working together. And the trail was an old railroad trail at one point, and then a group called the John Wayne Pioneer Trail Riders got together and started lobbying and working together and influencing people to fund the conversion of this trail to something people could use for recreation. As a matter of fact, they still use it today. They take wagon trains out on it, and they're holding their annual ride right now. So if you were out on the John Wayne Pioneer Trail within Iron Horse State Park right now, you actually might run into some Conestoga-covered wagons, some mule teams, but they still use it. And they felt that John Wayne was not only the name of their group, but one that would excite people's imaginations toward sort of a Western feel. And that's essentially how it got its name.
That is a great story. Thank you for sharing it with us.
You bet.
Getting back to some family-friendly adventures along this trail, what do you think would be a great introduction to this trail and a great day trip? You know, if you got a couple of kids and you're taking your husband and your wife out there for the day, what would you recommend for a first-timer?
For a first-timer, I really recommend starting at the westernmost end of the trail, and that's at Cedar Falls, which you can start at a place called Rattlesnake Lake Park. That makes it easier to find the trailhead, and there's a little trailhead within the park. You'll find signs up there. And then just ride down to Olali State Park and bring your camera, because you might want to take a break, not only from the bike, but hike up to Twin Falls a little bit and explore Olali, which is a day-use park. And then get back on your bike and ride back to the trailhead, and it's really only about a 4.5-mile ride either way. The nice thing about a rail-to-trail trail is that in the old days, steam engines couldn't make it up heavy grades or down heavy grades safely. So the path really, even though it goes from the mountains all the way down into the desert, the path is not steep. There's no real serious elevation gains. At most, there's probably about a 7% grade. It's really, really easy to ride, even for little kids. But that Cedar Falls to Olali and Twin Falls is just a perfect ride. It's a lot cooler up there in the mountains than it would be down in the desert area, and you'll just have a great time and see some amazing vistas, beautiful country, incredible forests, and mountain views.
Well, that sounds like a great intro to me. Let's talk about overnight trips, because there are several state parks along the way. There's one at Lake Easton. You've got one down at Wanapum at the very end of the trail along the Columbia River there. What would you recommend for an overnight trip?
Well, again, I think that staying up on the western end for an overnight trip, especially if you have somewhat younger riders, you want to be as careful as you can. You're going to be going through some dark tunnels and such. So if you're going on an overnight trip, take your time, maybe start at either the Cedar Falls trailhead and ride all the way to, I would say, Lake Easton is the most comfortable. There are campsites, multiple campsites along the way, but Lake Easton State Park is a full-service park with play equipment for the kids, full-service campground. It's just a great place to vacation, even if you're not on a bike. But if you are, you can take a dip in the lake if it's hot. You can have a campfire overnight and cook and camp, and then just get up in the morning and take a nice, easy ride back to your car at the trailhead.
That sounds like another great outing as well. Let's talk about one other thing here. Cautionary notes or things travelers should bring with them. You mentioned tunnels, so I'm guessing headlamps or flashlights are definitely in order.
Absolutely. The most infamous and famous of the trails, or the tunnels on the trail, is the one at Snoqualmie. It's also known as Hyack. And it is long and it is dark, very dark, and cold. So I highly recommend that, especially if you're traveling with newbies to the whole tunnel thing, that you be a good guide, use headlamps, bring extra batteries, because headlamps are known to go out from time to time.
Yes, they are.
And have a backup light source no matter what. Some other things you might want to consider up there is remembering to bring your bicycle tire repair kit and even an extra tire. And the reason is that I have personally run into something known as goat's head or puncture vine, which is deadly to bike tires. So if you're not careful, you can run across one of these horrible, sneaky little vines, and you will lose a tire. So remember to bring your puncture kit with you, and as always, bring sunscreen, plenty of water as well.
And you can always put some of that gel in your tires that basically is goat head resistant. So even if the goat heads get in there, you're not going to go flat. Is that something you like to use too?
I have used that before. It was a product that came out a little bit later. Unfortunately, too late for my tires, but...
Well, there you go. One last thing. If folks want to find out more about Iron Horse State Park and all the travels they can do along the way, what's the website we should steer them to?
Well, I write the blog at adventureawaits.com. It's the official blog and travel adventure website for the Washington State Parks, and that's just adventureawaits, all one word, .com.
That's adventureawaits.com, adventureawaits.com. Check out Heather Fry's blog about bicycling the Iron Horse Trail. If you want to find out about some of the state parks where you can stay along the way, go to the Washington State Parks website. It's very simple, parks.wa.gov. That's parks.wa.gov. Heather, thanks for sharing this with us on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thank you. It was great.
Hey, honey, come here. Check out these new loophole binoculars. They're not only great to see birds with and animals with, but check out the stars. Hey, and since there's a full moon tonight, I thought it'd be a perfect time to break them in. Here, take a look.
Wow, I can't believe it. You can actually see the craters on the moon.
Oh, but it gets better than that. See that gray area up there right to the right? That's the Sea of Tranquility. That's where the astronauts landed on the moon and planted the American flag.
This is so cool.
Now, if you look close, you can still see that flag.
Stop telling her stories.
Don't worry, Dad. I saw it. It was right next to the lunar rover.
Loophole binoculars, optical quality that's out of this world. Find them at a sporting goods store near you or at loophole.com.
Come experience the wonder of Oregon's seventh wonder, the Wallowas. Located in the heart of Northeast Oregon's Wallowa County, you'll find yourself anticipating the thrill of experiencing and exploring this rugged country. Join up with some of Oregon's premier guide services and ride into the Eagle Cap Wilderness, or float the Wallowa, Grand Ronde, or Wild Snake River. Bring the family and experience one of Oregon's 7 wonders, and you'll wonder why you haven't been here before. Your experience begins at WallowaCountyChamber.com.
You're back with more of the great outdoors on Northwestern Outdoors Radio with John Cruz.
It's that time again. It's time for another Max Minute.
Fish on!
Brought to you every week by Max Lure Company. This week, we're talking to Lance Mers about kokanee fishing. Lance, what are a couple of kokanee lakes that come to mind that we haven't talked about much?
You know, one of the lakes that I can think about, John, is Lake Tahoe, California, Nevada area, and then also the Flaming Gorge Reservoir in Wyoming and Utah.
Absolutely. Both of them straddle the states, so to speak, and both of them offer great kokanee fishing. If you were to head to either one of those waters or any of the other kokanee waters we have here, we're always talking about hoochies, but there's other ways to skin a cat. There's other ways to catch a kokanee, and I understand Max Lure Company has another lure as well.
Well, we do, and it's one of the most underutilized lures that we have, and it's called the UV Magic Imperial Spoon. It comes in 5 different colors. They've got UV and glow. Now, this spoon is made of plastic, so putting bait on it is not recommended because it'll kill the action itself.
Well, it's incredibly light, and I can see how that would happen if you did it, but it looks like, just from the build of it, that it's got great movement in the water, and I see it's also got some flash on it as well.
It does, and you know, if you want to put some sort of scent on there, rub some scented oil onto the body itself, and then that way it'll still keep the action, but it'll still give you that scent trail that you need for those kokanee.
Well, there you go, folks. It's the Imperial Spoon. It's another way to skin a cat or catch a kokanee at a reservoir near you, whether you're fishing in the Pacific Northwest or further afield, so to speak, at places like Flaming Gorge Reservoir or Lake Tahoe. Give the Imperial Spoon a try and look for it at a sporting goods store near you.
Want to go fishing and make money? You are in luck. This year's Pike Minnow Sport Reward Fishery kicks off May 1st. Just register at a check station and go fishing for 9-inch or longer northern pike minnow within designated waters of the Columbia or Snake River. Then you bring your fish back and collect a voucher good for a cash reward. The more fish you catch, the more they're worth. $5, $6, and $8 per fish. Catch a pike minnow with a special tag and you've landed $500. Find out more at pikeminnow.org. That's pikeminnow.org.
The Sling Blade is Max Lure Company's latest dodger for you to use. Lance Mers is with us from Max Lure Company to tell you more about it. Why are you so excited about the Sling Blade?
Versatility, John. You can bend the Sling Blade and change it from a reactionary bite to a normal bite, and it's got so many possibilities.
Not only that, it comes in different sizes. You can use the Sling Blade for everything from trout and kokanee all the way to ocean-going salmon. It's the Sling Blade. Look for it at maxlure.com.
A quality and affordable fishing adventure is waiting for you off Vancouver Island with Chad's Coast-Wide Sports Fishing. Located in Port Hardy, British Columbia, you can drive or fly to your all-inclusive guided fishing vacation. Whether you're after big salmon, heart-fighting halibut, or a cooler full of red snapper and lingcod, you can catch it all here. Better yet, your lodging, meals, and fish processing are all taken care of. Want one more reason to go? The price. With the Canadian dollar exchange rate where it is right now, your U.S. dollar goes further. Space is limited, so go to coastwidesportsfishing.com to book your trip for an incredible fishing adventure.
You're back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It's time to talk summer outdoors cooking. And the person that we're going to talk to about it is Tim Murphy. He is a prolific author of cookbooks that you'll find at flanneljohn.com. The Flannel John cookbooks. There's over 50 of them now? Is that right, Tim?
Yeah, we're closing in on, I think we got 57 total, and we'll get to 60 by the end of the year.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So you're located in Astoria. You've got a second job that's in radio with KVAS, and that's one of our stations. So thanks for bringing us on board. But let's talk about your brand new cookbook coming out this weekend, the Flannel John's On the Road Cookbook. What's this one all about?
Well, my wife and I have been talking about how we would love to just hop in a motorhome and see the country. Well, there's a dream and then there's a reality. The reality is I have to work for a living. But we're planning on taking some longer extended trips. And the whole thing is, you're trying to save money when you're on the road, but not everyone travels on the road the same way. Some people are hitchhiking, some people are camping, some are in a motorhome. So I put together recipes that'll take care of all of those disciplines.
All right, I've got to ask, what kind of recipes do you have for hitchhikers?
Well, I got a lot of foil packet cooking in this. I've got probably a dozen recipes. And it's basically you're putting what you like. Some would call it hobo stew or things like that. But you double up or triple up the walls of the aluminum foil. You put your ingredients in there, and you put it on the hot coals. And anywhere from about 10 to 12 minutes, your meal is cooked and you're eating.
You actually cover foil recipes and more in another one of your books, Flannel John's Smoke and Fire Cookbook. My experience with foil cooking has to do when I've been camping and maybe I've caught a couple of cutthroat or rainbow trout out of a lake. I'll wrap them in foil, put some salt and pepper on it, put some lemon on them, and like you said, about 10, 12 minutes, it's a fantastic meal. What are some of the other foil recipes you've got besides hobo stew?
Well, we've got stews, we've got chilies. You can do pork chops. You can do what we call bunless burgers. It's basically ground beef. It's great, too, for venison. And what I'll do is I'll do some ground venison or just a nice venison chop, wrap it in bacon, put it on about 12 to 15 minutes, takes a little bit longer. And you don't want to put it right on the hot coals. You want to put it like right next to it, almost indirect cooking. And, man, the stuff comes out great.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. Do you tend to throw vegetables in with the main course as well when it comes to foil cooking?
I heard people do that. On occasion I will, but it's got to be a sturdy vegetable. It's got to be something kind of dense. So if you're putting in potatoes or carrots, if you put something that's kind of softer, it might just kind of wilt and fall apart. So you got to have good, sturdy, hearty vegetables when you toss it in.
All right, we'll stick with the foil baked potatoes then is probably a good bet. Another book I want to talk to you about actually includes recipes from your region, basically the southwest Washington coast, the Astoria area on the northern Oregon coast. Has to do with razor clam and oyster recipes. What's the title of that book?
You just pretty much said it. That's the book right there. The funny part was I couldn't find a lot of recipes because, it's a hotbed right here. You got the Willapa Valley or the Willapa Bay, and I couldn't find a lot of good oyster recipes. So I went on a hunt, and I came up with about 60 different ones. Of course, razor clams are huge on the Long Beach Peninsula and the upper Oregon coast. So I put these together. In fact, people like them because right now that's my best-selling book, especially in this area.
So what do you think is the most popular way to eat oysters? Would it be grilled off the Barbie?
Some people just like them naked. They like the oyster shooters. I'm not that way. I like to take the shells, I put them on the hot coals, maybe put a little dab of hot sauce in there, and just let nature take its course. You get the right heat and the right oyster, and there's nothing better. You don't have to dress up something that tastes that good.
Silly question for you. When it comes to grilled oysters, when do you know that they're done?
They'll kind of stop being translucent. It'll firm up a little bit. A part of it's trial and error, too, depending on how you're cooking it and how much heat you're using. But you can kind of poke them and see. When they stop looking gelatinous, they're done.
And it's funny you mentioned that. The best oysters I've ever had were at my best friend's wedding, and they were off the grill, and they included hot sauce. They were wonderful. The worst oysters I ever had, well, I was a very young man, just over 21. I might have been a little bit hungover, and my best friend's dad decided it was the perfect time to introduce me to oyster shooters.
Oh.
That was not a good experience at all. When it comes to razor clams, I mean, a lot of people know about clam chowder, but what are some of the other ways that folks eat razor clams out there on the Northwest Coast?
I like doing clam fritters. And basically, you're chopping them up a little bit, and you're making patties out of them, and you're deep frying them. Especially if they're fresh, there is such a huge difference between fresh razor clams, fresh fish, than there is something store-bought or frozen. There's just, it's night and day. The first time I had halibut, I'm like, this to me is sea steak. This is the best meal I've ever had. And it's the same way. And since we've got all this in our backyard, I mean, it's just a wealth of seafood and just unbelievable taste.
You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Tim Murphy. He has published over 50 cookbooks. They're all part of the Flannel John's cookbook series. He's got a brand new one, the Flannel John's On the Road cookbook for RVers and travelers. And we've been talking about some of his other cookbooks, Flannel John's Smoke and Fire cookbook and the Razor Clam and Oyster cookbook he has featuring recipes from where he lives. Let's talk about another one that really intrigued me. You've got one that has to do with recipes from lighthouse keepers. How did you come up with that idea?
Well, I spent a lot of my life in Michigan and around the Great Lakes, and as a result, you start, kind of absorbing the history of the lighthouses, and then I move out this way, and there's a whole different lighthouse culture. But many of the people that were tending these lighthouses back in the 1800s and early 1900s were kind of self-sufficient. They had some basic food, but they still had to hunt and fish, so I did a little digging, talked to some people, and came up with some of the recipes these lighthouse keepers made all around from the Midwest all the way through to the East and West Coast, because you're going to eat what is close to you, and they've all got different delicacies. So you're going to have more lobster dishes out east. You're going to have more, razor clam and oysters out this way. The Midwest is real big on trout and bass and also deer. So I just did some digging, and for me, the history is almost as much fun as finding out the dishes they were eating.
That sounds really interesting. I've got to ask, were there some commonalities? Because I've always imagined that just about every lighthouse keeper has got a little garden, if they can pull it off, where their lighthouse is. I mean, were there certain recipes that seem to cross the continent or span the continent?
Yeah, a lot of them just like the plain grilled fish with some salt and pepper, because a lot of times they just didn't have a great deal of time to make their food because they were on watch. So they had to kind of cook their food as quick as they can and keep an eye on things. Not so much during the day, but especially the evening meal. You got to keep your eye on the horizon and be watching for ships.
One other book I want to talk about, and it's not so much outdoors related, but of a lot of folks that listen to this show are outdoorsmen. A lot of them may be single guys, and you've got the Single Guys Cookbook. I was actually looking at this, not so much for the single outdoorsman, but for my son who's about to go off to college, and he's not going to have anyone cook for him. What are some of the recipes you have there?
This is Food 101. I say this is for single dads, recent grads, and guys just kicked out of their parents' basement. It's 6 ingredients or less. It's basic sandwiches. It's basic stews. How to make a pork chop. It's things that maybe you just were never taught. Maybe it's like home economics for the single guy. But it's just really good food that you can make cheaply, but it tastes good. You don't need 17 pots and 42 ingredients to have good food. You can do it with 3 or 4 or 5 ingredients. And if it's good to your taste, that's all that matters. You're not trying to go on a reality show. You're just trying to make something that's warm and wholesome and filling for you.
Well, I think that's probably a good way to end our talk today, and I think I'm going to have to buy that book myself for the next time that my wife goes on vacation without me. The website, folks, to find out more about all of these cookbooks and get a copy or several for yourself is flanneljohn.com. That's flanneljohn.com. The author is Tim Murphy. He's got over 50 of these books covering all sorts of topics, lots of them outdoors related. Flanneljohn.com is the website. Tim, congrats on the new book and keep them coming.
Thanks, John.
If you're after really big game, it only makes sense to have the best scope you can put on your rifle. That's why you want the Leupold VX6 HD. This high-definition scope gives you sharpened clarity, and the Twilight Max light management system gives you the sight advantage you need at dawn and dusk when those big bucks, bulls, and Bruins are on the move. Add on our lifetime gold ring guarantee, and you've got the rifle scope of your dreams. It's the Leupold VX6 HD. Look for it at a quality sporting goods store near you and at leupold.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, a nationwide group working to keep public lands in public hands. We've helped ban the use of drones for hunting. We help repair wildlife corridors in key riparian areas. We speak up against illegal ATV use. Please join this dynamic conservation group. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
With an Evinrude motor and Minn Kota troller and Lowrance fish finder or two, we pushed off the dock just before 5 o'clock.
You're back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz, and we've got lots of news on the fishing front this week. We told you last week about catch and keep sturgeon fisheries opening up on the Columbia River in eastern Washington and Nello Pasinich, with the Coastal Conservation Association weighed in with concerns about opening up a sturgeon fishery below Bonneville Dam. Well, in a June 1st release that left fishing guides precious little time to fill their boats and anglers little time to make plans, Oregon and Washington fisheries managers decided to open up a very short catch and keep sturgeon fishery for the first time since 2014 on the lower Columbia. Here's the details. This fishery will be open for 6 days from the mouth of the river to the Wana power lines downstream from Longview. 2 of those days have already passed. The other one is today, but only if you're a Saturday listener. The remaining dates are Monday, June 12th, Wednesday, June 14th, and the final day, Saturday, June 17th. You can't fish longer than 2 p.m. on any of those days if you want to retain sturgeon, and the daily limit is 1 fish measuring 44 to 50 inches from its snout to the fork in its tail. An annual limit of 2 sturgeon, regardless of where they're caught, will also be in effect. Ron Roller, a fishery manager for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, said the 2 states are taking a cautionary approach to the fishery below Bonneville Dam. In his words, we believe the sturgeon population in the lower river has increased to the point where it can support a limited fishery without impeding future growth. Roller said that the fishery managers currently estimate there are 165,000 legal-sized fish in the Columbia below Bonneville Dam. The harvest guideline for this fishery, 3,000 sturgeon. In salmon news, after a very, very slow start, the spring Chinook finally started crossing over Bonneville Dam in good numbers around May 20th. The peak of the run over Bonneville is over for spring Chinook, but a lot of those fish are still finding their way into Idaho's Snake and Clearwater and Salmon rivers. The total run size over Bonneville appears to be about 60% of the 10-year average. Not good by any means, but not a total bust, and good enough that Idaho is opening up fishing opportunities for these fish again after rightfully closing the season out of an abundance of caution last month. The Idaho Fish and Game Commission reopened spring Chinook salmon fishing on portions of the Clearwater and the Little Salmon and Lower Salmon rivers starting June 3rd. The commission also set summer Chinook seasons in portions of the Clearwater, South Fork of the Salmon, and Upper Salmon rivers. Those seasons open up June 22nd. Details will be released soon. The reopened spring fishing season is going to target Jack Chinook in the Clearwater River and both adults and Jack Hatchery Chinook in the Salmon and Little Salmon rivers. Fishing is limited to Thursday through Sunday every week. Anglers need to pay special attention to rules on the Clearwater pertaining to harvest of jacks, clipped and unclipped fish, and be aware you can't harvest any adults until June 22nd to protect returning spring Chinook. Fisheries managers anticipate around 1,000 adults and 1,000 Jack Hatchery Chinook will be available for harvest on the Salmon and Little Salmon rivers, and about 1,000 jacks in the Clearwater. The daily limit is 4 hatchery adipose clipped fish, and where it's legal to keep adults, only 2 of them can be adults. Next on Northwestern Outdoors Radio, we're taking you to Big Sky Country, in particular, Butte, Montana. That's where you're going to find the Stonefly Fly Shop, and one of the co-owners, Chris Bradley, is with us here today. Chris, how have you been?
Doing well up here in Montana.
So, Chris, let's talk about fishing. June for me is always an intimidating month because river flows tend to be high, water conditions can be murky, makes it tough for a trout angler. How are things going on your signature river in the area of the Big Hole?
Actually, things are fishing pretty well down there right now. We're fortunate the Big Hole doesn't tend to get muddy. It gets a nice tea color, and as soon as we have about a foot of visibility, it fishes really well. So right now we're seeing Mother's Day caddis. Salmon flies should be here, I don't know, next 7-8 days, I would suspect. And your typical streamers and big springtime nymphs, San Juan worms, stuff like that's been doing well down there.
All right, let's turn our attention to the Beaverhead and a river that's on my bucket list to fish, the Jefferson. How are those two doing this month?
Beaverhead's been fishing exceptionally well, mostly a small nymphin game, little split case, blue-winged olives, scuds, that kind of thing. And Jefferson, kind of hit and miss these days. Clarity's not great over there, but if I head that way, I'd be throwing big streamers.
You know, when it comes to the Beaverhead, the Big Hole, and the Jefferson, let's break down the trout species that anglers are going to find there. I'm guessing predominantly rainbows, but do you get into browns too?
Absolutely. Pretty good mix, actually. I'd say it's probably close to a 50-50 split on any given day in your catches.
Last but not least, heading towards Anaconda, where we've got our affiliate, KANA, Georgetown Lake. Now, that's a place you don't have to worry about high water levels or muddy waters because it's a lake. How does that fish this time of year?
You know, I was just up there the past weekend. The fishing's been pretty good up there. Keep in mind that southeast shoreline closure through the end of this month, but the rest of the lake is free and clear to fish. Mostly little leech patterns, black and olive, have been the most productive up there.
So I presume you're just in a float tube or a boat and just kind of trolling that behind you?
You can do it that way, and there's also some areas on the bank that you can get it done too.
So why is the southeast part of the lake closed? Is that a spawning area or what?
That's a big spawning area, so just looking out for those fish.
Absolutely. And, you know, I know you and most of the folks listening to the show, especially fly anglers, you're pretty much all about catch and release anyway. Any tips for making sure those trout are unharmed so they can go ahead and bite somebody else's fly?
Yeah, just limit your handling time. Try to keep them wet. Those are the two most important things.
Absolutely, and don't play them too long because they
That's right. Get them in quick.
Absolutely. All right. Last but not least, let's go ahead and give folks the website for Stonefly Fly Shop and your location in Butte.
We're at 2205 Amherst Avenue in Butte, just a block off Harrison, real convenient to the interstate here. The website is www.thestonefly.com.
That's thestonefly.com, thestonefly.com for the Stonefly Fly Shop in Butte. Make it a point to stop in there, stock up, get the latest advice on how to catch fish in places like the Big Hole, the Beaverhead, the Jefferson, and yes, Georgetown Lake too. Thanks, Chris.
Making figure eights with musky spinners and lures. Oh, honey, I love you, and that's not a lie. Musky guides all tell the truth. This must be the reason why I miss fishing more than I miss you.
Want to go fishing and make money? You are in luck. This year's Pike Minnow Sport Reward Fishery kicks off May 1st. Just register at a check station and go fishing for 9-inch or longer northern pike minnow within designated waters of the Columbia or Snake River. Then you bring your fish back and collect a voucher good for a cash reward. The more fish you catch, the more they're worth. $5, $6, and $8 per fish. Catch a pike minnow with a special tag and you've landed $500. Find out more at pikeminnow.org. That's pikeminnow.org.
Tired of the same old fishing hole? Then head to Northeast Oregon's Wallowa County. Enjoy a weekend on the glacial waters of Wallowa Lake, where you can troll for the deep water excitement of kokanee or cast your line for some trout fishing fun. Bring your float tube or canoe and enjoy fishing in some of Wallowa County's small lakes. Or don your waders and step into the clear waters of the Wallowa, Imnaha, or Grand Ronde rivers. Early to bed, early to rise, fish all day, and there'll be no need for lies when you fish the waters of Northeast Oregon's Wallowa County. Visit us online at wallawacountychamber.com.
I'm Ward Burton. Think that's fast? That's nothing compared to how fast America is losing its wildlife habitat. Join the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and help us protect millions of acres. Visit elkfoundation.org or call 1-800-CALL-ELK.
At Leupold Optics, they guarantee performance. Those other optics companies, they just warranty failure. That's why every Leupold product has a lifetime guarantee. Think of it as a warranty you'll never need to cash in on. Find out more at leupold.com.
Sportsman's Warehouse is America's premier outfitter and has the quality gear you need for hunting, fishing, camping, and more. Our knowledgeable and friendly staff will help you find the right product so you get the most out of your time in the field or on the water. In addition to stocking superior clothing and outdoor equipment, we offer in-store events and seminars so you can enjoy a successful adventure. With over 70 stores located in the United States, it's easy to find a Sportsman's Warehouse store near you. Find out more at sportsmanswarehouse.com.
One more time this week for Northwestern Outdoors Radio with John Cruz.
Let's run through some upcoming events together. If you're a Saturday listener, the 10th is a free fishing day in Idaho, and both this Saturday and Sunday, the 10th and 11th, is a free fishing weekend in Washington. That's right, no license required. If you live in Montana, you've got to wait one more week. The 17th and 18th are your free fishing days. Again, no licenses required, making it a great time to introduce a new or lapsed angler to the sport of fishing, or maybe go fishing yourself in a nearby state without paying that non-resident fee. If you're a Saturday listener in Washington State looking for a place to fish or do something else outdoors, consider a state park, because the 10th is also a free day to enter Washington State Parks in honor of Get Outdoors Day. That's right. Not only do you not have to pay for a fishing license, you don't even need a Discover Pass to get into one of Washington State Parks only on June 10th. Other events happening around the Northwest include a family 5K run, walk, and outdoor skills challenge taking place at the E.E. Wilson Wildlife Area near Corvallis on Saturday, June 24th. The adult race fee is $25. Youth fees are cheaper, and 9 and under is free. It's taking place from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the 24th, and it's being put on by the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and Pheasants Forever, along with some other organizations. Now, this 5K run and walk through the wildlife area is an opportunity to try your hand at trap shooting, spin casting, archery, and animal track identification. There's going to be certified hunter-angler instructors at each station, and there's also going to be music and a wildlife information station at the finish line, along with a raptor demonstration. Looks to be a lot of fun. The event benefits Pheasants Forever. Something else coming up is taking place at Harriman State Park Saturday the 17th. It's opening day for fishing there. That's right. Bust out the fly rods, and if you need a little instruction before you hit the water, don't worry. They've got you covered from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. There's a What's Hatching seminar. It's an interactive presentation to teach you about the aquatic insects that fish find irresistible. And then there's a fly casting clinic where you can learn how to perfect your technique before you go to the ranch section of the Henry's Fork for a little bit of trout fishing. And now it's time for your Sportsman's Warehouse Trivia Question of the Week. I love raptors, and I know a lot of you do too. One of my favorite hawks is actually a member of the falcon family. It's a small and colorful bird, often found looking for its next meal from fence or telephone wires. It's commonly called a sparrowhawk, and it's very common here in the greater Northwest. Do you know the name of this little hawk that's commonly called the sparrowhawk? If you do, there's 2 ways to enter for a chance to win. Number 1 is through our Facebook page at Northwestern Outdoors Radio. Simply like our page, look for the post, and give us your answer there. Or, if you prefer, go to our website at northwesternoutdoors.com. After you check out what's coming up on the show and links to our guests, head to the Contact Us page and give us your answer about what is the name of the little hawk found in the Northwest called the sparrowhawk, the proper name for this hawk that's actually a falcon. While you're on the web, I hope you will check our sister show website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. We've got a Facebook page for that one too, and you can listen to both shows on WRVO Radio. That's an internet station dedicated to outdoors programming 7 days a week. The website for that one is RenoViolaOutdoors.com. Last but not least, you can download us. We're on YouTube. We're on Podbean. Simply look for America Outdoors Radio and Northwestern Outdoors. You'll find us in a hurry. The kids are graduating from school, and if you are a parent or grandparent, that means it's time to rip them away from their mobile devices and take them outdoors for some adventures, whether it be bicycling along an old rail line in the mountains, fishing in the fresh or salt water, going for a hike, or going camping and enjoying some good, simply made food. Whatever adventure you choose, make it happen this summer. Until next time, take care, God bless, and make it a point to spend some time outdoors.